Three, two, one. Hi, everybody. This is Robert Linkle. I'm coming on today to share with you my top 10 exercises that I use the NT loops for. I really like this product. Our clients really dig it. It is a interchangeable tool that we can utilize a lot, especially with any exercise that we would use bands for that require contact to the skin. So this has been a huge piece for us. If you don't know my demographic, I work specifically with older adults for the most part. I have a lot of their kids, as you see these two here, that train with us as well. So I'm going to buzz through these and just kind of give you a couple shows of each one, how we do this, and what we use them for. So this is a what I call a hip height or horizontal step up variation. The hips go, or the band, excuse me, the band goes just over the top of the hips as they alternate through their step ups, providing them some opportunity to work on displacement, pushing their core and their tension into the band while being acted upon by pulling backwards. So there's a balance and coordination component to this that helps us quite a bit. We will load this one as well as we kind of move through the abilities of each of our clients. Our next one, jump over to that one real quick, is Susan. Susan's doing a lateral slide. So we use these guys specifically with our older adults. We have a mobility component that we train that's a fall prevention component, or excuse me, a fall prevention modality. So I like to pick exercises and select exercises that are going to push our clients or pull our clients into kind of non-traditional, non-stable positions. So by working out our hip displacement, pushing away on these bands, driving out lateral component, push, 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 and then we call it down climbing, where she has to down climb slowly without getting yanked off her feet, basically, and acting upon the band to engage against the resistance, work and drive her body in the lateral aspect, but also to kind of coordinate this movement that's really non-traditional. It's a big issue for us with our older adults to make sure that we're training them in as many opportunities as possible to not injure them. So these are to not injure them, but also to not allow them to train themselves out of the ability to stay upright. So what I mean by that is, in my opinion, falling is our clients' lack of ability, mobility, stability, and such. So we want to act upon them and build strength in so many different areas with bigger gait controls to allow them to be as optimal as possible, meaning that they won't have as many opportunities to fall down when acted upon by an outside source. Notice this step with Pam here is a low angle, and we have it double banded. So she's got a lot more pressure pulling down on her here. This almost simulates like climbing uphill or doing a stair mill because of the low anchor. We have a big anchor point with a sandbag in the back, which is really nice with these bands, is we can attach them to pretty much anything as we're moving around the gym. And the tension angles, I mean, that's the comfort component for this is really one of the big pieces, and why when I saw Nick first put this up for sale, these products up for sale, that I was like, hey, we got to get these guys. I really dig these. Here's one of our clients going through a rehab component. He had a big foot injury, football player, grandson, plus the parents, plus the grandparents. I train the whole family. So we use them just creative components. Notice how high the box is. We're giving him this high angle box position because we do flip him around, sit him on the box, and he'll do quad extensions at the same time. So these are just straight leg extensions or glute extensions, hamstring eccentric work while we're pushing them out, bringing the band in nice and slow. And notice how the band is just looped around the bench. The other leg, even though you're stabilizing on that leg, it does have to brace for impact with the band being pulled on. It's not a ton of work, not a ton of pressure, but it is an additional training component, especially for someone with a foot injury like this. We can move that band up and down and just put a little bit more pressure in different places for them to learn to execute and engage some more muscle activity there. All right, this is a fun one. One of our clients, his name is the Colonel. He's actually a full bird colonel. He's 30 years in the Army, so we call him the Colonel. His name's Steven. He has a really hard time hinging. So one of the positions I put him in is this high angle hinge, where the band will get lighter, allow him to eccentrically stretch into the position. But at the top, the band gets tighter, obviously, and he has to brace and push his hips into it more. So more or less, we're utilizing the band pressure to pull him back, though it gets lighter. He has a great deal of pressure there, and the band displaces him, pulls his hips back, and it's teaching him how to hinge. Notice the low angle of the band. So we are pulling down and back. I try to get about a 45-degree angle if I can, without getting people stacked up on too many boxes. But this is really one of my favorites for teaching our clients how to hinge properly, having a good progressive resistance, as I call bands, progressive resistance component, learning to gauge push through here, and a comfort level. You don't have a rubber band rubbing on the inside of your thighs if you have short handles or if you have to hold on to just the band itself. So another big component for the NT loop for us. All right, here is another variation of that. We call it the triple band abductions. So Linda is working on her hip displacement. The band's pulling her back. Notice the band around her forearms. So she's pulling that band apart, kind of like a consistent no money. Shoulder blades are being retracted. And then she has another band around the top of her knees, creating a little bit of abduction at the hip. So of these three bands, we're getting three different actions, two abductions and one posterior hip displacement pull, a good eccentric stretch on the way down, and then she's learning how to brace and pull her hips forward, almost like a standing glute bridge. The three actions of the band create a posterior chain activation, more or less, that simulates a full posterior activation, which is pretty cool. There's very few exercises that do that, where you're able to turn on, every muscle for the most part on the backside of your body without, specifically leaving one out. Like in a seated row, you might have the hips and the hamstrings stabilizing while you're rowing, the erectors working a little bit while you're rowing, etc. But rarely is everything on at once and creating some movement all at the same time. Some of the other ones we do, just our forward and back runs. I really like these. Notice the big purple bands, the super bands on the back as well. Oops, jump over here to see these guys. So this gives you the opportunity to drive out as far as you can with good comfort around the hip, but it's also putting a good amount of pressure with that extra band on there, where the client can work themselves pretty far out, feel that resistance, and they have to decelerate their body on the way back in, just like we did laterally with Susan earlier. This just gives us a huge inertial momentum push forward, and then they really have to drive and like decelerate themselves back, drive themselves forward, decelerate themselves back. So those are a couple of key components for us. It gives us a great conditioning piece too, by staying inside. This guy's name is Steve, and Steve has two knee replacements, had them both done at the same time. So getting him in this kneeling position was tough, but getting him to hinge in the kneeling position was even harder. So this was pretty cool. This is just we call a chest pass, a vertical chest pass, meaning he's pushing on a vertical plane, but chest passing down, hip displacement. He's got a little hinge component to this as he's driving through. It's a gasser. It really wears people out. But the band, he basically can work himself as far away from the post as he likes, where there's a pretty great deal of pressure on him, pulling his hips back, and then he has to drive his hips forward as he engages the ball, brings the ball up on a high pull, and then a chest pass strike back down. Notice our anchor point back here as well. I love these anchors. These are Eclipse anchors that can loop through here. We use REI carabiners, just traditional like rock climbing carabiners, because we're attaching pretty good amounts of load and stress onto these. So I can adjust these and move these anywhere. I know there are some facilities that have anchor point systems where they're more or less just kind of kept in one place. But for us, we like to be able to move things around a little bit and adjust them per the height of the client. This is a fun one to do. The bands, as you saw with some of the others, bands pull the hips back, create some displacement, allow for a really good hamstring stretch. You have any clients that have lower back issues, this is a traction component that is just so comfortable for people. Pulling the hips back, pulling a little bit of traction away from the hip, from the lumbar. If they have any pelvic hip issues, meaning femoral head, lumbar, or not lumbar, labral issues, this gives them some pressure release in there as well. And then engaging up the top, they can hold a little bit more stress than normal because they have this band in front of them that they're able to perform their rows on as they come up. And we can load those bands up pretty high too, Another one of those exercises where the whole backside of the body is on, even all the way down to the calves, the Achilles, everything is all engaging, allowing uh, to stabilize the body through this, fairly dynamic action. And it's a really coordinated movement. A lot of people have a hard time, putting that one together when they first start off. I believe this is our last one. It's pretty much the same idea as the forward runs, but backpedaling. Our clients with back and knee issues, sometimes they have a hard time going forward. So we'll put the comfort of the band right around like the top of the glutes and just have them drive back as far as they can, engage that tension, and then kind of down climb flat foot, pedal forward without the band yanking them off their feet. There's a core component for big guys like this. They don't feel much in the core, but as far as the coordination and the action, the acceleration and the deceleration for the knees and the hips, all of that is really beneficial for us. So it gives you a little idea of, how we use and what we're using the NT bands, or excuse me, NT loops for. Um, I believe I was the first one to ever purchase an NT loop. I'm very proud of that, and always happy to support Nick with his products, his services, and everything else that he puts out. So I wanted to share these with you. I hope you enjoyed them, give you some ideas on how you might use the product, also how you might, incorporate some of these pieces in with some of your clients and why. I appreciate you following, watching this video. Feel free to subscribe and share down below. I always appreciate that. And thank you very much. Check out trainingtheolderadult.com if you want more information. We also have a live event coming up in October, 2 weeks away from the date this comes out, October 11th and 12th here in Sacramento, California. If you're able to come, check it out at trainingtheolderadult.com/live. Thank you, everybody. See ya.